when you get to prison? What was that like when you are like, did it set in finally? Were you still half rocked from being like, was your mind still hazy and you were trying to soak in what has happened here? Or how did that settle in when you first got there and were like, I'm going away for a long time?
The first thing I did was admit that I was guilty, that I did something wrong. That was the first thing. That was the first thing I did while I was in county jail before I went to prison. Is I did something wrong. Somebody lost his life, and I expressed. It's one of the things I expressed in the reports. So later on down the line, they came back and read that to me and say that was how I felt at the time. Before I was even convicted, that I was guilty.
So you took accountability before you even got the guilty verdict.
Right before.
That's commendable.
Yeah. So I put that on the record, and that was, I think, made it much easier for me. So I started planning in my mind. I was already programmed that I'm going to be in prison. Better prepare myself for this.
Yeah.
So that's how my process began.
Welcome to the Magnificence of the Three, where we level up to find out who we are, why we're here, and how to do it better. I'm here with my brother from another mother, Timeout to Mua. And today's episode is going to be a unique episode where we're going to focus on Timeout's story and how we met, but mainly focus on the life that Timeout has lived with some pretty significant challenges and how far he has come. And we're hoping that this gives the viewers some hope, especially if you're out there struggling, which a lot of us are. This gives you some hope as to if you focus on resilience and transforming yourself, just amazing things can happen. So, Timeout, I'm going to turn it over to you, buddy, until we get into the story, because I know you like to start us out with a quick prayer, and then we'll get into the good stuff I'm excited about today. So go ahead.
Thank you. First, thank you for tuning in to our show. So we start off with prayer on every show as a tradition for Christians, especially for my people who are Samoan. So, our Father in heaven, thank you for this beautiful morning. Thank you for adding another day to our lives. Thank you for strength to giving our bodies, make it possible for us to be here. Thank you for the mental and as well as psychological strength you're giving us to endure our days here. We ask for your spirit be with us today. Thank you again, our Father in heaven, for all that you've done for us. I ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. All right, Timeout. So, a couple of friends have given some feedback on the show, and they were asking yesterday, what's the audience? And I'm thinking, well, the audience was intended to be for human beings, and this is more about finding a higher power, finding God, and not about religion, because our take on religion is it's really created a lot of separation in this world and a lot of limitation and fear. That is not to say that we are against religion by any means. Everybody has their own faith, their own path, their own belief system. We're not here to push any of that. But I think with our story, what we can at least show the viewers is the amount of hope that's out there for you when you are going through a dark period. And your period of darkness could have potentially been decades time out. So we're going to get into kind of how you came over from the Samoan Islands and got over to the States at 20 years old, but you were already struggling with alcoholism and maybe some substance abuse at that time. And then once you got to the States, everything kind of spiraled from there, it sounds like. And you ended up serving 25 to life, ended up 21 years of that was actually in level 4, which is maximum security.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how you got through that. And before we do that, let me talk briefly about how Timeout and I met. So I was doing some Uber share driving. This is less than 4 months ago. And I had taken a break and I was sending out some text messages, and a ride comes through. I accidentally accept it. And something told me at that point, well, I can cancel this, no problem. I've got some stuff to do, but for some reason, I'm going to take this ride. And so within 10 minutes, I pick you up. And with that 10-minute ride, it's like something clicked. It's like, man, we know each other. That's what it felt like. You wrote a book last year. I wrote a book last year. But it couldn't be a bigger contrast as far as upbringing and life experience. And that's the beautiful thing about it. So you, growing up in Samoa, come over here, you're incarcerated for 27 years. During that 27-year period, here I am going through kind of an upper middle class family, grew up in a small town next to a nuclear power plant, and I go off to college on a baseball scholarship, drafted by Major League Baseball, all these great things, right? The living the American
Right.
dream. I end up at a corporation where I'm a corporate speaker for 20 years. And then, as addiction doesn't discriminate, I went down hard with alcoholism and depression, and everything happens for a reason. At this point, I don't ask why me, I ask why not me, because you start seeing the things line up in your
Right.
past and you go, oh,
Right.
now I get it. This happened for a reason. And the same thing, you and I were talking the other day, and you said, oh man, things are starting to come together. So you go from incarceration, you end up, I'm going to let you tell the story. You've got some great info to share, I think, with the viewers here. And you end up writing an award-winning book that took you 10 years. You're uneducated. I mean, you said you went up to like maybe a 11th, 12th grade level in the islands before coming over here, but there's no reason that somebody of your education level would be able to write a book. How many pages is that?
About 600.
600 pages worth of material that when you start going through it is pretty amazing stuff with scientific proof of God and structure of the atom. And that's what we covered in the first few episodes. And we're going to start and we'll continue on with that after we tell more of our stories. But I did have friends and family members going, you know what, you guys should really share your story, because this is a story that shows that things do happen for a reason. So let's just back up. Let's talk a little bit about, growing up in Samoa, just briefly. But before that, like what what brought you to the States, and what, just go through the whole process of
Right.
of the kind of the downfall and the rise out of prison.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we start, let me take this time to uh, to apologize to all the those I have harmed in my life. I have always had lived a troubled life since my youth. Even in the islands, I lived a troubled life for one reason or another. So let me take this moment to to publicly express my sincere remorse for everything I've done. Anyone I've harmed in my life, in my past, whether out here in the streets, from the islands, including prisons as well. I have done some research and done some inventory, like the big books says that we ought to do, and I've done a lot of harm in my life for no reason, including as well as my family. So again, I ask for your sincere, I ask for your forgiveness, and hopefully we find the spirits in common to see the usefulness of this emotion for both of us. So thank you again for the opportunity. Thank God for this opportunity to be here. So the second thing I wanna say before we start is I want to thank the Book Awards people who had honored this work with awards. I was really I know you're Christians. I know a lot of things, most of the things in this book had never been said before, and I think my people that I know as Christians already look at me as some kind of evil prophet, or some kind of false prophet or evil prophet. But yet, the people who are reviewing the book, who are also Christians, have honored this book with awards. And I thank you. I sincerely, if you get a chance to listen to this video, I sincerely thank you. Thank you very, very much. You're not supporting me. You're supporting God's work. And I know it takes a lot to go away from what you believe your whole life, because this is the stuff we're saying here is different, but there is scientific proof that God is a scientist, and we provided that proof for your review, and you approve of those claims. So thank you again. So
Let me interject real quick. Okay. Timeout. That's commendable, and I just want to tell the audience that knowing you for this short period of time, it's a beautiful thing to see somebody that is transformed, because no matter what your past has in it, I can tell you that you are one of the you're one of the kindest, compassionate, empathetic people that I've met, and the most intelligent people I've ever met. So the past is behind you, and I am proud of you for everything that you have accomplished. So go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, as for myself, my personal stories, I'm Samoan. I grew up in South Pacific. I was raised by very great parents. My dad passed away in 2018, and man, I miss that man. I really, really miss my father. I wish I had spent more time with him, but by the time I was 12 years old, I was already out of the house because I had to go live with families next to schools where I was attending. I those are the years in my early years with my father was I used we used to sleep in the hills in the mountains on our plantation. So, in the morning I'll go to school, but we always have the habit of listening to the news, the world news, early in the morning. PPC world news. First it comes in English, and then they translate it in Samoan. So we always listen to the news before I go to school. So from there, I think I began. This is how I began to envision the world, was through this news. We don't have TV. This is the only thing we have was a little transitional radio, but my mind will start being programmed there about curiosity about the world outside. There's a world outside the islands that I wanted to see. So, but that was I grew up in the island. I grew up in the church. I was a Methodist, but as I got older, I began, even in my youth, in my teenage years, I started to have a whole lot of questions that can't be explained by the pastors in the church about a biblical record, and those are the things like the tree of knowledge, the tree of life, the Garden of Eden. Why hasn't anybody found these things, So I know a lot of people had those same questions too, but I grew up there. I went to school. There was a lot of, for an island with little alcohol, there's really not much alcohol in the island. I left the island pretty much on the verge of an alcoholic, and I was a teenager. And I went to a school. My first, it's one of the questions people asking me. I mean, why were you drinking? I mean, it's paradise. Why did you live there? It's paradise. Why did you live there in the first place? But my explanation is, your mind was not meant to be contained. That's what happens to me, at least to me. I feel like the island became a prison in itself. You can't go nowhere. And then this is why today a lot of our kids now turn to alcohol. A lot of alcoholics, a lot of drugs is now coming to the islands, and it's killing them because they don't understand. The government don't understand. These kids need to get out. You need to get away. The island becomes a prison. You got nowhere to go. Your mind's just it's contained inside a box, So and that was my problem, I began in high school. In high school, I went to a high school where in the islands, the high school is the school where I went to. In like an intermediate school, they give you one test for all the intermediate schools. So depending on the scores of your test, this is the school you attend. So I ended up attending. My scores was pretty high. I ended up attending one of the best schools in the islands, anyway, the top school in the island. So we had teachers from outside, New Zealand, American. I had a couple American teachers, New Zealand, British, Australian teachers, and this was the first time I didn't realize how much stress I was until later on when I went to prison. But I was going through stress because here in this school, you fail one class, you're out. And somebody replaces you. There's always a line of kids who want.
So when you say you fail, you're out. That means that if you fail, you're out of basically high school.
No, you
get kicked out of the school.
Get out of this school. You go to another school,
and you go to a different. Okay.
The difference to a lower school. This is like a lower because these are rankings. The government ranked this schools. This is how bad this was. So the kids here, I don't know if anybody was going through the same emotions I had, but I was stressed out because, and then I wasn't the kind of person that sits there and I had problems with concentration and stuff. It was later on when I went to prison and I started to see the symptoms of attention deficit disorder. That's the symptoms I had when I was young. Yeah, I couldn't focus on anything, on modes, but I had enough in my brain to at least study for a month or 2 months and then pass all my tests. And I'm going, and then move on to the next year.
So nothing like being landlocked with a mind that won't stop running.
Yeah. So it was, but it was that was kind of like my life. I didn't realize how stressful I was, and then I ended up start drinking while I was in high school. Start taking mushrooms. That was a high in the island. It was
mushrooms and alcohol. How old were you at that point? Even you're in high school.
I was 15, 16. And by the time I leave there, I was already drinking hard liquor. Hard liquor became something that we need to have in the islands as kids, So anyways, but that was a little summary of my life during that high school. It was during those years that people don't realize that school does stress you up. We're people who don't have a whole lot of things to stress about, but there would be something to stress you out. And this was what my stress was when I was young, was a competition, because the school was a competition. To stay in this school, you have to compete to be there.
Well, I think you had mentioned too that it's a lot of pressure from the family. I mean, the disgrace to the family if you fail out, it was significant, correct?
Exactly, because it's a small island. Everybody knows that you come out of this school, you fail out of this school, it's actually a shame on the family.
Yeah.
It's an embarrassment for a lifetime. You carry that on yourself. Just this is just the school, just this school by itself. And so, but one of the best thing, the only thing that I took out of that school was that I came out there of that school with one dream. That dream was to be published. So I was one of those guys who always get in trouble. That's why I was saying in school. I think when I left the school, I had the most detentions in the history of that school. When I left the school, there's still detention that I haven't I haven't done yet. There's still leftover detention that I needed to do. So that's how bad that was. So,
but your intent was to actually have write a book and have it published, and that was at what age?
That was a thing that happened when I was 16.
16.
Yeah. So I was in this class, and I have these moments where I would write. This practicing, I would draw and write. So we had an assignment, and that assignment was an essay, just regular essay assignment for finals. And so I wrote, I got this essay. I still remember how, like it's still stuck in my mind, the scene, everything that I wrote in that essay. And then I submitted it, and I was so shocked when the teacher came out and held the essay. I would say, I'm going to read this to you guys, because and then you look at me and say, and that's what he said. He said, you have it in you. If you concentrate.
So somebody saw that you had some writing potential in you. Yeah.
So and that's exactly. So he read the essay to the class, and everybody said, the kids were shocked that but that's how I was. Like, there was this burst of energy that and then it goes away, and then I get distracted, and I get bored with it, But from that, it was the best thing that happened in that school in those 4 years in high school was this teacher's comment, that day, say, you have it in you. And then that was when my dream in my mind began forming.
That's important to note too, because I mean, obviously, you were meant to be an author. That's obvious when you read your book, especially being uneducated. You just had it in your soul. But I think it's important to note too that, especially for those out there that may teach or coach. I've coached baseball. I was a teacher in finance. It's extremely important that we remember that what we're telling our students may live with them the rest of their life, literally a sentence.
Right.
And so I've had that in my life, especially with coaches. I remember when I played at the University of Arizona, my pitching coach, the best thing, he didn't mess a lot with our mechanics being a pitcher. We were already there. His thing was working on our mind. And I remember he would tell us every single day after practice, if you can wake up in the morning and like what's looking back, then I've succeeded. And boy, did that resonate with me. That's the biggest thing I got out there. I didn't make it to the big leagues, but that was one of the biggest learning lessons that I had. So let's back up. And so now I know there was some other stuff going on with the military, but let's kind of skip through that for the sake of time. So you end up coming over to the States at 20. Talk about kind of that 5-year period before you ended up getting incarcerated.
Yeah, when I came here, it was really a shock. It was a shock, people don't realize that, people don't really realize how difficult it is for different cultures to interact with one another, because most countries there's just one culture, is your people. America is where there's a concentration, what they call a pot of, the melting pot. Mm-hmm. That was a difficulty for me. One of the worst things for me was interacting with these people. I have no idea who they are, different colors, the different ethnicities. And I have no idea how as a young man, when I got here, I seen a lot of violence, a lot of bullying against my people, because there wasn't that many of them. And so I seen a lot of the youth, the youngsters. So we got a lot of fights, a lot of bad things happening when I first got here.
So were you fighting against each other?
No, we was about fighting against other groups.
Other groups,
yeah.
okay. What were the main groups?
It's
know
usually Hispanics, blacks, whites. We fight with everyone. So, but it was the initial shock that came with was the interaction, the lack of understanding for me, and other people as well. The lack of understanding of one another, and a lot of the violence out here in the street for the youths amongst one against racism is that lack of understanding. So I ended up when I came here, I was already pretty much in the beginning stages of alcohol of an alcoholic. So I started drinking. I started doing a whole lot of drugs, and those are my days. I was a functioning alcoholic. I go to work, I drink in the morning, drink at lunch, come home and drink again. And I was a driver. I was driving drunk. I was a truck driver. I was driving drunk every day. I was on the freeway, with a case of beer, a cooler of beers, in a truck driving around. And so, but that was kind of like summarize my. And then I met my wife, which was the best decision that I made in my life. That's the only best decision I made in my life. All my decisions were bad except that.
Up to that point.
up to that point was meeting my wife. So she helped kind of like contain my behavior, because I was already, but
You were spiraling at that
yeah,
point.
I was spiraling. I was spinning out of control already.
And so you were experimenting with, it sounded like PCP, cocaine,
I
pretty much all across the board.
all
Put it
across
in
the
front of me
board.
and I'll do it.
That's the worst part about me as well, because I started meeting these people, and most of the time I was high or drunk. It was done for free. Like, people were offered drugs. This, I don't know if it's just the environment or in the 80s, but I would go to work. I would talk to people and say, "Hey, you want to do a line?" And then we'll go do a line in the bathroom. I mean, it's just there was stuff all over
You
the
were
place.
just traveling around on that frequency.
They could
smell you out.
And most of this stuff is free. It was freedom, man. I did heroin, did coke, PCP, acid, all these things, mushrooms, weed. That we sell weed a few times, but when there was all this stuff, I would walk in, people would invite me to their homes, and they would, I had a neighbor who nobody goes in his house. Nobody's allowed in his house. Everybody knows he's a drug dealer. So, but he would invite me over there on Sundays. Hey, man, come on. Let's eat. Let's have lunch. We'll go. And he would spread out the table and cut out lines. And I'm like, what is this? Say, enjoy. And I didn't even know these people, but for some reason, they just, they offer me stuff that, I say, I got no money. I say, come on.
Well, let me guess, though, that was a hook to get you in, right?
Nah,
Because weren't you
probably.
telling me a story where they had you delivering drugs at some point, and you're like, I'm just doing this for free. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah. Oh, I had a neighbor. And we used to get drunk every, I didn't know who he was. We used to get drunk, but and then one day I seen him. He was strapped. I asked him, "Hey, what's up, man? Why you strapped?" And then he didn't say nothing. But like a week later, he took me to his place, and he opened up the closet, and there was a stack of heroin. These are bricks, like almost a third of this place. The closet was full of bricks. So the next thing you know, we're carrying. We're just getting high and delivering stuff for people. For no reason. I was sewn out of my mind at that time. Like, I didn't even make
You were
any.
you were lost,
Yeah,
and
I
you
was
were
already lost.
spiraling. And this isn't to glorify any of this stuff,
Yeah.
because we know where the story leads, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you end up. So what happens to land you in for 27 years?
Yeah. So
25 to life.
So I was already around these people, around drugs a lot. Became my word. I wasn't selling anything. I was just using drugs. I was just a big party then. So, and then somebody say, "Hey, there was a load coming in." I don't want to go into too much detail, because it's still my other crime partner is still locked up.
Yeah, let's not disclose anything.
Yeah. So that's how we end up doing. I end up doing robbing a drug dealer, and it was a horrible situation, but that's how I end up. We got into a fight. One of the drug dealer pull a knife, and my crime partner fought over the knife and ended up killing him. So
So your partner is the one that actually committed
right,
the murder.
right,
But in the 80s, which is when this happened, correct?
right.
You were considered an accomplice, I take it.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you commit a felony and something, and a violent felony, which is the act of a robbery, and the murder happens, even if you didn't kill
Even if
anyone,
you didn't do it, you're going away
you're
25
going
to
away.
life.
You're
So you
going
weren't on the
for
three. Were you on the 3 strikes at that point? Did you already
No,
have
no,
two?
no.
This was just the one incident that put you away as
Yeah,
being an accomplice because you
right.
were there during being in the wrong place at the wrong time. You're by your choice, obviously, and you accept
it was.
that.
I accepted
But at the
that.
same time, it wasn't even you that did the murder, and you're going away
Oh,
25
yeah,
to life.
we're all guilty. We're all guilty for making that decision. You
Yeah.
know, once you make your decision, you're guilty of it, regardless
Right.
of circumstances. You're guilty. You know, I was guilty. You know, shouldn't be there in the first place. Yeah, but
So you end up getting sentenced. Tell me about the first day that when you get to prison. What was that like? When you are like, did it set in finally? Were you still half rocked from being like, was your mind still hazy and you were trying to soak in what has happened here? Or how did that settle in when you first got there and like, I'm going away for a long time?
yeah, I think that it was it's much easier for some people. For me, I think it was a little bit easier for me because the first thing I did was admit that I was guilty, that I did something wrong. That was the first thing. That was the first thing I did while I was in county jail before I went to prison. Is I did something wrong. Somebody lost his life, and I expressed. It's one of the things I expressed in the reports. You know, so later on down the line, they came back and read that to me and say that was how I felt at the time. You know, before I was even convicted, that I was guilty.
So you took accountability before you even got the guilty verdict.
Right before.
That's commendable.
Yeah, so I put that on the record, and and that was, I think, made it much easier for me. So I started planning in my mind. I was already programmed that I'm going to be in prison. Better prepare myself for this.
Yeah.
So that's how my process began.
So how did you end up getting along with the inmates during that time in general?
Okay, so in California, it's a little bit the system is separated by race. So for us, there's the Hispanics, there's the blacks, and there's the whites, and there's us. Us, they call us. They don't call us by race. They call us as others.
The other,
the others.
That's not condescending.
The others, so that's who we were. So our group is Polynesian and Asians, and everybody else who don't want to claim any other group, they come to us. Oh yeah, I'm other.
Yeah, we'll take you.
We'll take you.
We're the freaks.
So, but yeah, I started in a place called a prison called Old Folsom. This is in the '80s, and my God, it was
Dude, Folsom in the 80s.
in the '80s. Oh, this is Old Folsom. But people who don't know this place in the '80s, and it was a bad place. I got there, all the prison camps were out, and man, they were locked down for like over 10 years. So when they just got released out of the main line, the cell doors were open '84. So I got in '85, and it was almost a thing of beauty. If it was artistic in a way, but man, they had a lot of killings. They had a lot of violence. And one time, I think it was '86. I should have kept the memo because they issued out a memo. I looked at the memo. I was so shocked. For 3 months, I think they had killed 8 people, and they had stabbed almost. It was like over 200 people that got stabbed in this yard in 3 months. This is in 3 months. That's how dramatic, how bad the place was. It was. And I'm over here. I'm new to the system. I'm over here walking around and watching all these things go down. I think I watched 2 homicides there. And I tell you, these guys, that's all they do in the cells. They learn how to
Learn how to kill.
learn how to kill, and your body learn where your lungs or your heart, how to have access
Just
to it.
studying anatomy.
Yeah,
On how to take you out. Now,
Yeah.
is this the same? Isn't Folsom the place you said you were actually watching TV and like a 2020 or something version of that.
Yeah.
And you saw that some medical center
Yeah.
had created an outside
Yeah.
medical venue right outside the
Right
gates
outside.
because the violence was so
Yeah.
bad that they were, and you were wondering how these guys were making it back
Yeah.
in surviving these stabbings.
Yeah. And that's
Which school was it? Was it you went to Harvard?
Harvard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Harvard they came in there. They built they had their own ward for these are people, the new doctors that's coming, and they're training them here in this prison, how to fix wounds, and this is how a lot of these people survived. There were a lot of people that died, and I was wondering, because people, I'm like, did he die? And say no. And then I was wondering, and then one day I was watching, was it 48 Hours, I believe, and they were showing this show, and like, man,
You're like, that's right. That's like
no wonder
250
why.
yards away from here.
No wonder why all these people are coming back, because these doctors. I remember one guy. I think they hit him like it was actually done by one of my buddies. Came here from Orange County, and they hit him like 22 times, and he survived. And I'm like, how did this guy? And that's how what happened was they had these doctors out there. They were saving these guys' lives, And it was my supervisor who told me who he was. I'm like, oh man, that's how bad the place was. I didn't realize how the dramatic effect on me until I think it was in the 90s. I was in another prison in Lancaster, and they were showing this movie called American Me.
Oh yeah, American Me.
Yeah, this was about
Edward James Olmos.
Yeah. One of the dudes told me, hey,
Classic.
yeah, let's go watch a movie. Let's go. We were outside in the day room, and let's go in early, go watch the movie. I said, what movie? And he told me, he goes, yeah, it's on a Mexican channel. I said, all right. I don't speak Spanish, so I went anyhow. I just want to see the movies. I had never seen it, but they were filming this movie while I was there. I was there in Old Folsom, so I went. That's why I wanted to go watch, see if any of the inmates are in the movie. And man, the movie started, and all I started feeling were, there was this like anxiety. This is what we call anxieties, I believe is what they call it. My stomach I start sweating. Yeah, I start sweating. I start having goosebumps. I didn't even like 3/4 of the movie. I changed the channel. I was just sitting there. My whole body was just vibrating, like I was pretty much shaking. And so in the morning, I came out, and I walked with this guy, with my buddy, to breakfast, and the one that told me to go in and watch a movie. So I asked, hey, how was the movie? He said, man, I didn't even. He said the same thing I was saying. I didn't even finish the movie. I started sweating. I had to go sit in the toilet. I think I almost threw up. Because he was there at the same time I was there. And he goes, man, I couldn't finish the movie. But you're seeing how your mind is, the effect the environment does to you. That I didn't even really fully realize that until I start writing a book, and then I understand how the environment actually affects how your brain is wired.
And that's because in the book you were writing about how if you interpret the Bible via parables, that it's really talking about a journey of the mind and development of emotions. So not being in that scenario by any means, I would imagine that it's probably very similar to being at war and witnessing the violence in the human mind. I don't know. It doesn't have the capacity to handle that. So I can only imagine going back and seeing Old Folsom when you'd been transferred was probably very disturbing.
Yeah, it was one of because quite a few cars were military veterans from Vietnam. And one of them, we were talking one day, and he goes, man, I was a Vietnam veteran. Trust me, I didn't see this kind of violence I did in Vietnam, because, it's a different kind of violence when it's so close up. So, there's like in the yard, there's like
you're face to face virtually.
200, 300 to 300 people in this little small place where you can barely walk without bumping into somebody. And there's somebody there with a knife. There's somebody there waiting to put something in you, So and this guys would say, man, we had never seen this kind of violence in Vietnam when we were there. This is and this was, so that's how bad that was,
It's literally a war zone.
It's a war zone,
face to face. And so So you come over, you're already struggling with the alcoholism, you spiral down, you get thrown into prison, you're experiencing all this negativity. At some point, I mean, did you form a relationship with anybody within the prison that you got close with, and what were the dynamics of that? How was it? I know you keep to yourself a lot, but did you open up and get close to anybody in prison, and how did that work out?
Oh, it's a blessing for somebody like me, because I'm not one of the big races, the three big races. I'm other, so those guys can't talk to one another. You hardly see anyone talking to blacks or Mexicans and the whites. You hardly see them communicating. But for somebody like me, I have nobody can put restraints on me for our group not to talk.
So
to
the
me.
others can talk to the Hispanics, the whites.
We talk to everybody else. That's the benefit of us.
Yeah.
So we get to communicate with one another. So, in there, one of the things that I learned in there is, when you meet people, you have to judge that person right away. It's one of the survival trait. It's a survival instinct. You have to judge that person right away, who this person is, and you judge that by shaking his hand, his demeanor, and you can right away eye contact. You can right away tell if somebody's a threat to you. Whether you trust this person, because and that's one of the things that you need to develop. I did, so I tend to right away know who to talk to, who to hang out with, and who to play with, because I play a lot of basketball in there, and I play on the side of the Mexicans and the whites. So you interacting, when you play basketball, it's a violent sport, so you have to have something, you have to be strong, and don't care about anything, but you have to face.
You're charging into the paint and just get shanked in the kidney.
It happened before. It happened in there, No, so those are but. I met some really good people in there. Some, people have, they've also, you always meet people that you're in sync with. You have the same spirit with it. They're murderers. Some of them, they, do bad things, but there's always people that they have no problem sharing stuff with you. They'll feed you. It's just like I was. I even when a lot of the release races go on lockdown, so sometimes they'll go lockdown for months. And so nobody goes to the store. So I get stuff I'll share with people. There's the kind of things that that was a lot of people will look at me and say, man, they don't believe what I'm doing. They probably think there's some kind of ulterior motive I'm doing.
But you were just a giving person by nature.
And
they're probably like, what's in it for you, dude?
Yeah, I know what it's like to be hungry. That's what I was. I know what it's like to be hungry, because I was a lot, even in prison. I was saying I was a troubled person. Even in prison, I was a troubled person, and that's how I ended up spending 21 years in level 4, because I've always had disciplinary problems. So when you have disciplinary problems, they always put you away in what you call administrative segregation, or
which is maximum security. So you spent 21 years in level 4, which is maximum security, which is 23-hour lockdown, correct?
Right.
So how do you even get to know people in that environment?
There's a lot of
fishing.
There's a lot of fishing. It's what you call
fishing.
So
you're putting down the string and passing notes back and forth.
Yeah, we can play. One of the things that we normally do as well, we play chess. We play chess. There's like 20 feet away in the cell away, so you're yelling across the day room, across the building.
Prison form of virtual chess.
Yeah, virtual chess. That's what it was. So there's the interaction like that. There's but that's one of the things. People share food. Like I share food. With people, so they do the same thing. They return the favor whenever they get a chance.
So bottom line, was there one in particular person that you got to know well, or?
No, there's quite a few people that it's from my own group, from my own Samoans. We have quite a few people, that we interact with. From my people right across the board, everybody takes care of one another, just like all the other races. Just like all the other groups. But for me, there's a lot of people from other races I was close to. I still close to today. I still talk to them today. And there's one guy. I went to the level 3 prison. These are little things that, but I noticed, it's a little thing. So I got to this level 3 prison, and he was a Mexican, jumped me, like just walked up and palmed on me for some reason. I don't know, somebody gave him the wrong information. And so I got into it with him. Anyways, the story was so the Mexicans that I know, I try to talk to them. They walk away. They're trying to make sure that that I'm that people don't see them that they're close to me, that they know me. Just in case some
Sure,
people
they'll talk to you, but they don't want their own kind
they
known. Yeah.
their own people to see them. But one guy, he's from over here from Orange County. I met him up in another prison, so I seen him over there. So he's the only one who stood there, and we have a conversation. And I'm like, oh, in my mind, say, this is a man right here. This is a man. That's how, like, little things people don't notice, but I notice. I notice that. I say that's the difference between him, all these other Mexicans I know. This is a man. He's fearless. He has absolutely no fear. He doesn't care about any other people. He cares about where he stands, how he feel. So that's how you judge people by those little things. So we're still friends on Facebook today. He got out too, but those are the little things like in prison that you notice. One time, this is also another trade that I picked up in there. So I know there was going to be a hit. If somebody's going to get stabbed in the yard, but we don't know who it was. I don't know who was going to be. So what I did is I went and started shaking people's hand. I think I shake about 10 Mexicans' hands that morning
To see if they're holding something.
Yeah, see, I just want to see how people
Or
feel.
see,
Just
get
in
the
case,
energy.
a lot of people I know, people I play basketball with. Just in case I don't see them, okay, if
Yeah.
he's the one going, at least I say goodbye before him. And then one guy, I shook his hand was cold. Oh,
hand
I'm
was
like,
cold.
oh, this is it. Oh, you're it. So I shook his hand and say, hey, I'll see you later. But he was my basketball team. He was he usually play him a center because he's a little bit bigger than me. So I shook his hand. His hand was cold. I'm like, oh, my boy's going. But those are little things that you learn. You learn as a survival trait.
So speaking of survival, how did you keep your sanity that long, especially being in isolation for
Books. Books. It's just like in the island. I love reading when I was a kid. I really enjoy it. It's a way you get out of the island. It's a way you see other places. It's a way you travel by reading a book. And that's exactly what I did. And I read thousands of books. That's one thing I always have in the cell is a book. I may not have a cup of noodle, but I always have a book in the cell. So I've always and this is what a lot of prisoners they're self-educated people. There's quite a few of them who successful. I think a couple of them wrote movies, and they made books, make their scripts into movies. And one guy wrote a script, I believe, when he was housed in Pelican Bay SHU, in a security unit, and he wrote a script, and they made a movie out of it. I can't remember the movie right off the top of my head, but these are the people in there that I mean, these guys are writers. You write their you read the stuff that they write, and it just jumps off at you and say, man, this guy should be a writer. He should be writing books out here, but he's stuck in prison and he doesn't know how to get out. But those are little things. That's how I did myself. Was reading. Was pass the time with.
So the interesting thing about when you shared with me about writing your book, and I was asking you about the material that you studied within prison, of course, based on your material of scientific proof of God, and you're using a lot of biblical scripture and parables, and what it's really referring to in context. I automatically assumed that you were somewhat of a biblical scholar, but you talked about reading like Atlas Shrugged and some of these other novels, Les Miserables, things like that, that really influenced you. You didn't really have any sort of religious or biblical background to go off of this, yet your intention when you got out of prison was, I'm going to write a book about God. I don't know where to start, but I'm going to write a book about God. And I think the amazing part of it all is you and I coming together is then the other thing was, well, once I get this done, how do I have somebody help me articulate it, which is where both of us come into the equation. But what sort of material were you reading in prison?
Now, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand is one of the most influential books in society today. I believe the politicians, those behind the conservative movement, use this book a lot, to design their policies. But it influenced me. What Alice Shrugged is anti-Christian. She's anti-religion. She was Jewish, but she was anti-religion. He doesn't like anti-communist as well. But what the book did for me was, it made me feel guilty that, like I have potentials, but I did not fulfill those potentials. We all do. There's an instinct in us that we all have the same tools, but for some reason I fail, and everybody else that I know, made it, but not me. So Alice Shrugged was the one that put me on notice that I do have that ability, that I shouldn't be. What I'm doing is I've been a vulture my whole life. Is how I saw myself when I was reading this book. Uh, but I like those books where it influences society. Les Miserables. I love that book because because it also has to do with an inmate, or how the law was chasing this guy over eating an apple because he's trying to survive, and the law chases him throughout his whole life. So it was a very, 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 very good book. But in the process, it ended up changing society when this book came out.
So when you read like Atlas Shrugged, for example, you felt, when you say felt guilty or shameful, is that you knew that you had a purpose inside of you, but felt like it wasn't being fulfilled because of your circumstance. So at what point in prison do you remember when you decided, you know what, when I get out of here, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to end up writing it on God, and why God?
Oh, look, the truth is the preparation was a lot longer than this. So it started like this. My wife used to come spend a weekend with me. We have private visitation. It's a program the state created. It's called a conjugal visitation.
Right.
So I ended up having a kid. So after I had a kid, the governor, then Pete Wilson, changed his mind and said, "Hey, no life of prison is going to be released no more. Nobody. If you're convicted of murder, you're going to be stuck. You're going to die in prison." So, and then they took the program. So they took the program from us and say, no prisoner has the rights to his children with visitation from his kids and his family. So my question was, what about these kids we had? We wouldn't have had these kids but for the program
Right.
you created. What happened to them? Do they have some? Don't you care about what you brought them? You participated. You
participated in
this
act,
program. Yeah. You're the one who enacted the program, made it possible for us, life of prisons, to have kids. And so I knew there was something wrong with it. So I started. That's when my whole life, everything began processing. That led to this book. Was I said, you know what? It's not good enough for me.
So this is when you started studying law.
And that's when I started studying the law.
And you studied law for, you said 12 years, is that right?
Yeah. My case went on for exactly
to the Supreme Court, right?
I went all the way to Supreme Court until right before I got out, the Supreme Court rejected my last appeal, and so I left. But that was that began this process of rejuvenating myself. I feel like when I was in junior high, like there is this burst of hunger for information, and this case here was what did it for me. So I started processing myself. I say, man, I gotta learn. If I'm gonna go to court, I have to get a typewriter. I have to learn how to type. I have to go to the law library, study the law, file all these basic, because it's very, very hard to file a case by yourself if you don't know anything. So that's what I did. I went to a program where you learn how to type, ordered me a typewriter, and then my life, like simple stuff like that, changes the life, man. And then my brain started activate. My brain started working. And then,
I was going to say, once you learned how to start typing and get your ideas down on paper, that had to have been therapeutic, right?
Oh, it was big, because now remember, I didn't share this, but when I got in prison, like everything that we had out here, we're in prison. All the substances, the drugs,
that's
alcohol,
all inside and even more. Yeah,
that's still inside as well. It's the same thing. So when I got in, and I already made the plan, like, I'm gonna go through the week if I get a job, but in the weekend I'm gonna party just like I did out. It's gonna be a party, so that's exactly what I did. I make sure there's wine in the weekend. So I learned how to make wine. There was always weed, and so it was a party. So at least a couple of days you spent making that wine. It's a whole process.
So you got Pruno making during the week, and then you're writing during the week, and then rewarding yourself on the weekend.
No, this is before I began writing.
Okay.
This is before I got this typewriter. So my whole life, I think it was like 15 years. My whole life, during those 15 years was this, except for the time I was in a hole or the security house using, but most of the times, you try to make sure you're drunk on the weekend, drink something during the week. And so, but that was my life. I was, you read, you go out the yard, you play, come in, read, and party on the weekend. So that was consistently the plan every day until this happened with the family visit, and then slowly began changing my life. I stopped making wine because it takes a lot of hours to make wine. Crush the apples, squeeze the apples, that kind of stuff. It's a process. So I stopped doing that, and then I got a typewriter and started reading more about the law. I started spending half of the day in the law library, just to begin the process of how to file a lawsuit in the federal courts, that kind of stuff, what kind of rights you have in the Constitution, especially what kind of law am I going to base my lawsuit on? What rights have the government violated my rights, have violated regarding this issue? So that was slowly, my days were full activities. In the process, I started learning how, I help people file their divorce papers, people that, want to divorce, they say, hey, how do you do this? So I help them. I help a couple of guys do their appeal, and then it didn't come through, but I helped them, I became busy. My mind, my whole routine started changing.
And you had a purpose and you were helping other people.
Helping other people. So this, without even me realizing what I was doing, I wasn't really looking for anything. I was doing this stuff for free for people, I filed their appeals and their visitations, and that kind of stuff because I'm learning the law. And so, but in the process of going through this, nobody was talking about it at the time about the case out of the California State Supreme Court, and I was reading it. It was the area I came across because this was the area of the law I was using to file my lawsuit. When I read the case, I'm like, nobody really talking about this case, but they can't go around the system can't go around the parole board people can't go around this ruling. They're supposed see when you go into prison, regardless of what sentence you have, you're supposed to do this, and this. If you satisfy all this criteria, then they cut you loose. That's what they didn't do to us. So, but that was the process I began. When I found out about this case, I'm like, man, I think I'm going home. That was 2000. I think I came across.
When you're referring to the case, are you referring to the fact that they were realizing that they had put people away, going for life, that for ridiculous reasons, like stealing a donut on their third offense or something? Is that what case are you referring to?
We're talking about people who were convicted, who were serving life sentences.
Or serving life in general.
And serving life sentences.
You're already overpopulated, and then you go back and review some of the cases that they had, and they're probably just ridiculous reasons to be away for life.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So then I think that 12 years, because the way that you write your book, The Magnificence of the Three, is structured just like an attorney. So you make claims in there. So do you think did that study of the law, did that inspire you to write the book in that format?
No, it wasn't. This is what I'm talking about, like the preparation that I was going through without me knowing that I was getting prepared for this task.
Okay, so you're saying that this was almost a prophetic process of you leading you to get to writing the book.
I didn't realize until I was in the middle of writing the book, and then I started thinking, hey, a light bulb went off in my head and say,
you learned this for a reason.
This is emotion. I'm writing emotion. This is what emotion is in the courts. In the court system, you make your claims, you present, and then you bring in support, legal arguments, support your claims. And that's exactly what the book is. And then that's when it's thinking in my head. I'm like, I'm writing emotion. This is exactly. So all these little things are starting to come to make sense. The preparation for this task, I've come to believe. So, but that was one of them.
So. It's a crazy journey, because you and I we were talking in the car a couple of weeks ago on our way up to do a podcast, and you were telling me, you know what, I think I'm seeing how everything has come together here. And you had to struggle through decades in prison for you to be able to look back and go, oh, now I see why that happened.
Right.
In that moment, you're not seeing it that way at all, most likely. It's like any struggle you go through in life, you're going, why me? Why is this happening to me? And I think the opportunity you have there is to say, why not me?
Why not?
And when you view it that way and you look at that challenge as an opportunity, then you will see that if you think about it in a positive manner, positive things start to happen and you grow and you learn out of the process. And then you end up looking back going, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me at that moment. But now it's the best thing that ever happened to me, or I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
I'm going to tell you another one. You know, without even realizing it, when I got this typewriter, because I was locked down a lot, we were locked down a lot in labor force. So when I got this typewriter, I'm seeing the problem in the system, and I know I got ideas on how to fix it. So I start writing letters, putting proposals together, and send them to members of legislator. You know, there's an organization called the Hoover Commission. I send a lot of proposals to them about how to fix the system. You know, so this is a problem solving kind of area, you know, and that's exactly what the book is. Exactly what you're trying to solve a problem that's been existing for
exactly the way you structure that book is you are very analytical. You can tell you break it down, and there's logic behind everything that you're saying. That's what surprised me. Is somebody that's totally uneducated. You read in prison, but it's not like you were studying to be a physicist or anything. Right. And the structure of that book is very detailed oriented and in very logical order, which was impressive. We're going to run out on time. So after you got done writing The Magnificence of the Three, and then you see kind of where we're at now in a very short period of time, you and I, on getting this podcast going, where you needed somebody to help you articulate this. I was looking to start a podcast. I run into you coincidentally. And then we have this material in both of our books that kind of intertwined with this experience that we had. And we won't go into the experience that you had in prison, but we both talked about our experience that we had, which instantaneously changed the way we looked at the world and our perspective. And the main thing we both agree on is it eliminated the fear of death, that instantaneous experience. Now that you look back at this, when you got out of prison, I'm sure you had certain goals besides reading the book. What is your definition of success at this point?
Oh, you know, after learning what I've learned so far while writing this book, you know, for me today, success can only be defined if you learn two emotions: remorse and forgiveness. If you can learn these two emotions, if you can literally live with these emotions and learn how to apply it in your life, you succeeded. In the Bible, you know, God went out of his way. I explained this in the book. God went out of his way to develop this thing about burn offerings, you know, animal burn blood sacrifices, animal burn offerings, and the reason why I believe was how God emphasized it, because these two emotions were very, very important for us in developing our brains.
To sacrifice ourselves and have remorse.
Regret, yeah, be remorseful. Be remorseful of what. If you learn how to recognize your problem and be remorseful of what you've done, and most likely you won't repeat it again. And the forgiveness is something that's very, very difficult for everyone. It's normal for us to be bitter and be unforgiving, but forgiveness this is the reason why God was so emphasized the development, because these two emotions, I believe, as I said in the book, unless you learn these two emotions, this is why God makes sure that we learn it, develop. Unless you develop these two traits, you'll never make it. You're going to be harmful to society and to yourself and people that's close to you. But that's the definition of success for me, is unless you learn these two emotions, exercise and apply in your daily life, you won't be much of a contribution to society.
That's awesome, buddy. Well, thanks for sharing, because it takes some bravery and some courage to share some of the darker things in life. And I commend you for taking accountability, being apologetic, and sharing the lessons that you've learned. So the show, we like to create an environment and talk about material that can help you grow if you're ready to grow. If you're not at that stage, then that's where you are. We're all on a different journey. And if you are in that stage, then stick around, because I think we're going to have a lot more great material, and it's going to be very broad. It'll expand out. We both have over 100 years of life experience of both contrast of light and dark. And I think that's where you learn is in that darkness and how to give other people hope. So why don't you go ahead and lead us out in prayer, and we'll wrap up, bud.
Yeah. Our task is just to give you the information. You know, what you do with it, that's on you. We're not looking for any popularity contest. We just want to give you the information and see if it's useful to your life. So we're gonna store it. That's what's good about the internet. We store the information and let other people come in and see if they can apply their life. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for appreciate your support. Subscribe to our channels and we close out with God. Thank you, Father in heaven, for your presence and your spirit today with us this morning. Thank you for assigning us this task. We pray that word gets out to the people, to the community. Let them get to know you better. Let them know how you designed us to be successful in life. Thank you again for your presence in our life. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. You can find us on YouTube at TM3 Club and The Prodigal Warrior. Remember who you are, and when you serve others, you serve yourself. We'll see you next time.